Has PJ Fleck hit a ceiling with the Minnesota Gophers football program?
Hey,
You are Locked On Golden Gophers.
No matter what we're going to do here, we're just going to keep rowing.
Your daily podcast on the Minnesota Golden Gophers.
However it turns out, we're just going to keep rowing.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
We're just going to keep rowing, and keep rowing.
You're listening to Locked On Golden Gophers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. My name's Kane Rob, host of the podcast, former collegiate football video coordinator and recruiting assistant, here to talk Golden Gophers with you each and every day of the week. And so be sure to hit subscribe wherever you find the podcast, especially over on YouTube, where we're building this community up so you don't miss any videos moving forward. And thanks for making us your first listen when it comes to Gophers daily sports. But today we're talking about a phrase that a lot of outside fans, not from Minnesota, but in the conference, even maybe some outside analysts have been throwing out there. And I've seen it all over, that PJ Fleck has hit his ceiling when it comes to the Minnesota Gophers. They're always going to be this. This is the top end. This is the highest they can go. Is it true? Can the phrases that go with it is like, they can never win the division. He hasn't developed a quarterback. He hasn't beat Iowa. He doesn't win big games. The recruiting classes haven't been that good. Now, even just hearing some of those statements, it's kind of a little bit off-putting just because he hasn't developed a quarterback. Well, if you look at what Tanner Morgan was and what he was expected to be and what he ended up as far as records in the Minnesota Gophers history, the amount of winning that happened with him at the quarterback helm, you know, it's not an NFL quarterback, but it was definitely a development of a quarterback. And now he has the most talented quarterback he's ever had in his career, possibly, at the helm for the team. So we'll see what happens with that. But I mean, I feel like the folks that are truly talking about this and saying these things, they're truly just kind of talking out of their behind. I mean, if you look at the factors at hand, if you look at winning and development, if you look at recruiting and you look at it all, it can't be true. It can't be true. And we're going to talk about why. Because first of all, I want to clarify. I'm not saying it can't be true because I'm a Minnesota fan and I'm covering Minnesota Gopher sports. No, if you look at the details of it all, yes, they have done relatively well. They have progressed in the right manner, but I'm not sure you can say there is a ceiling and he cannot get higher than what we have done thus far. First, number one, you look at the winning and you look at the development that has happened here. Minnesota has won 9 games prior to him coming. A lot of people like to throw that fact out here. Oh, the season before he came, they won 9 games. So he took over a program that was already doing well. Hold up. Look, I know that he had 9 games or the team won 9 games prior to him coming, but let's not act like we were some barn burner blowing the doors off of folks and winning these games by massive double-digit points and all of this. No. The Gophers were typically getting about 7 wins on average in the seasons from the early 2000s up until that point. They had 2 seasons since 2000 in which they got 9 wins or more. 2. Then Coach Fleck came in, and he has had 3 of the last full seasons. Each one of them had 9 or more wins. And you know what? If you even go further back, it's more than more than the year 2000, you will see that the Gophers have had more than 9 or more wins only those 2 times since like 1905. And yet Fleck has done it 3 out of his 5 full season opportunities to do so here in Minnesota. And that also doesn't address the fact that it's not like we went and fired Coach Kill and that's why he wasn't here. He medically retired. Now, they did fire Tracy Claeys, who was the interim coach for basically 1 year prior to Coach Fleck being here. He was the coach that filled Coach Kill's shoes. But that firing was due more so to the things off of the field. So for those always boasting about, oh, Claeys was just as good as him and always referring to that 9-win season prior to him, I ask in rebuttal, why did no other programs give Tracy Claeys a look as a head coach? Because these folks constantly bring up what others have done, but that doesn't actually mean to say that the coach is better. It's almost like you solely have disdain for Coach Fleck, and I get it. He might not be for everybody, just like he's not for every recruit. But I think overall it's a little overwashed because the winning has been pretty consistent here with the program over these last few years. And yes, there was an 11-win season. And can the Gophers get back to that? Possibly. Is it going to be difficult? Absolutely, with the conference getting better. But that doesn't mean that they've gotten to that peak yet. On top of that, we're not talking about, has James Franklin hit his ceiling with Penn State? Has Kirk Ferentz hit his ceiling with Iowa? Michigan's Jim Harbaugh had years where it was 8 wins, 10 wins, 9 wins. So those programs have even higher recruiting bases, have even higher talent that is coming through when it comes to your traditional star rankings, which you can't get caught up in. But that question was never asked. Iowa sees similar recruiting each and every year. And you know what? It started off with, what do we have here? It started off with 1 win, 3 wins, 7 wins, turned into 11, 10, 10, then went back down to 7, 6, 6, 9 for Kirk Ferentz. And we didn't say, oh, is the ceiling there? And no, they stuck with it. They kept moving forward. They got to an Orange Bowl. They got to a Rose Bowl. They've won the division multiple times once divisions became a thing. So no, I am not concerned about a ceiling, but I am looking towards where we can grow, where we can improve. Winning can get better and it can stay consistent. Recruiting can get better and it can continue to develop players. There's still a lot of room for growth. But speaking of recruiting, that is another factor of where PJ has had great success with the talent he's had. Not to say he's turning out top 30 classes every year, but there's still room for growth. And we're going to address the salesman stigma coming up next. First, let's talk about our friends over at Built Bar. You got to go over to your local Walmart or your local Sam's Club and you can pick up your box of Built Bar today. And you can find them in the pharmacy section at those department stores, or you can head on over to built.com where you can use promo code LOCKDOWN15 for 15% off your order. They're healthy and they taste amazing, and they're covered in 100% real chocolate. That's right. And they have multiple flavors galore. That's the best part. I think the best part about Built Bar is that they have a flavor for everybody out there. Different strokes for different folks. And you can go find what your key flavor is, what sounds the best to you today. Give it a try. And 17 grams of protein. How many products, how many protein bars are you finding that taste good, are covered in chocolate, and still have 17 grams of protein? It's the full package. So definitely check it out today at built.com. And be sure to use promo code LOCKEDON15 for 15% off your order. Now, Gopher fans, thank you so much for listening to Locked On Golden Gophers and making us your first listen when it comes to Gophers daily sports. Today, we are talking about Coach Fleck and that statement that just needs to be addressed of, has he reached his ceiling? But on top of that, you look at the recruiting and you look at what has happened, what could happen, and also we need to address the salesman and if it's a shtick, because I think a lot of people get stuck on that. But first, let's look at the player development. Now, thank you to the everydayers that tune into the show each and every day, because if you do, you've known from a show we did about a week ago where we talked about the stars or the under-recruited players that have turned into stars at the collegiate level, guys who have gotten all Big Ten or all Big Ten honorable mention or have set school records, people who have come in with little to no expectations and turned into NFL players, program record setters, all Big Ten conference honors. That itself should show you the development that has happened here, because it wasn't just 1 or 2 players. No, there were multiple people. So there's been a lot of player development here, which we've talked about on the show. And if you haven't seen it before, definitely give that a check. But the everydayers know. And if you go even further than that, Coach Fleck has had the most draft picks in a 3-year span since like 30 years from now. So the last few decades, he's had the most NFL draft picks within the last 3 years, and he's looking to expand on that and have the most draft picks in a 4-year span in the last like half century. So that alone already is telling you the trend and trajectory that this is going with player development. And if it was just a ceiling already, then they probably wouldn't be continuing to churn out and grow NFL prospects from the program. But there's also a stat on top of it all that has been kind of going around out there on the Twitterverse and whatnot. And the stat that is going around, it kind of doubles down that player development here in Minnesota is deeper than it ever has been. You look at over the last 11 NFL draft classes, Minnesota has had 11, that's right, 11 four-star players, 11 four-star recruits that have come to the program, and 4 of those 11 were drafted. Then you look at a school like Nebraska that has had 67 four-star recruits in those 11 NFL draft classes, and 3 of them were drafted. So 3 out of 67 versus 4 out of 11. And that wasn't the only one that stood out. Michigan State has had 52 four-star recruits and has had 5 drafted. So 1 player more than what the Gophers have had as far as four-star recruits that were drafted. And yet 5 times as many four-star recruits. That speaks volumes, and it doesn't even include the 3-star guys that have turned into NFL players or the no-star guys like Jordan Howden, who's about to be drafted, or like Blake Cashman, who has been drafted. It doesn't touch into any of that. So the recruiting aspect has been better here with Coach Fleck, and yet there's still room to grow because you haven't seen the top 30 classes, the top 20 classes. We can get there with more consistent winning. Now, overall, I think that most people's problem with Coach Fleck is seeing him as a salesman and thinking it's all a shtick or he's sneaky. But those people haven't ever been in a room with Coach Fleck. The energy isn't a shtick. It is who he is. And it's just not just me saying that. It's not just Minnesota media saying that. Andy Greeter of the Pioneer Press dropped a fantastic read if you haven't read it already. But it was a story about Coach Fleck and Coach Buzz Williams at Texas A&M, who is good friends with Coach Fleck. And they get together a lot, very often in the off seasons. One of them sees the other and kind of checks out their program, takes notes on the things, the way they're doing things, takes notes on leadership. But the thing that Andy said in this Pioneer Press article was that Buzz Williams, it was a quote in there from Buzz Williams, and I wanted to read it. So he said, you don't initially think it's real, but it's not only real, it has a lot of depth to it. And I think that's why he's won bad jobs and he has done things at places that no one else has done, and in my opinion, will never do. Now, that's respect from a head coach who has had success over the years at multiple schools, getting them to NCAA tournaments, that has a 62% winning career record with his D1 programs, has brought Marquette, Virginia Tech, and Texas A&M to the NCAA tournament, has won Coach of the Year for the SEC in his first year with Texas A&M, and he is telling you straight up, like the energy, the what seems like a salesperson, it's not fake, it's not a shtick. He really is that energized. He really is all in on what his beliefs are. And on the actual recruiting front, like we said, no, PJ Fleck might not have top 30 or even top 25 classes each year, but I don't know if we can say he has peaked either, because these past 2 classes you look at, more and more in-state talent is wanting to stay home and play for the Gophers. More outside talent from states that you wouldn't expect, like Virginia and Georgia, are wanting to come and play for the program. And I think the possibilities could grow even more. I truly think if the Gophers can put up another 10-plus win season, that could give recruiting another jolt, simply because, they've been consistently doing this thing. The Gophers are sneakily up there often. The Gophers have finished as a top 30, top 33 team in a lot of these seasons now. Like that starts to add up over time, especially if you can put it together against a big schedule, which we have this year. That leaves some opportunity to let the ceiling grow higher. Now, all of that being said, yes, there is still room for improvement, and we're going to discuss what needs to happen. But there is one genuine factor to me that I truly believe the best is yet to come for Coach Fleck and the program. And we're going to discuss what that X factor is coming up next. All right, Gophers fans. So we're wrapping this thing up. We've still got some room to grow. We've still got things to do here in the Coach Fleck era. But with Coach Fleck so far, the culture has developed immensely. The player development is proving to be better. Winning has been more consistent and not settling. Players and coaches are in the community and are doing great things. Charity work and academics are at an all-time high. The Axe has been in Minnesota 3 of the last 5 matchups, including back-to-back. And quite honestly, there was an overtime in there where we lost by a field goal that was right there away from it being 4 of the last 5. So all these Badger fans talking about how, oh, it's just 2 in a row, it's just this and that. Nah, it's been a lot closer to 4 out of 5 than it has to 1 out of 5. And to be honest, I still think he has work to do to continue to build the program. He needs to beat Iowa. He needs to get to a Big Ten championship or an expanded college playoff as we get there. And getting into a New Year's Six Bowl, not once, but consistently more often. And is it possible? Absolutely. But in no way do I think the ceiling has been reached. Just like the best of the best workers in their workspaces, whether it be a salesperson, whether it be a baker, whether it be a chef, whatever it is, the best of the best never settle. They're always grinding. They're always wanting to know how to continue to be better. And Coach Fleck does the same thing. He's always looking to improve insights and learn from those who have created success. And I think that is the number one factor to why we haven't seen the ceiling yet. Now, in that article by Andy Greeter of the Pioneer Press, he did an amazing job at covering Coach Fleck's relationship with Coach Buzz Williams, but he also talked about how Coach Fleck has sought out to learn and pick the brain of multiple coaches that are getting it done in different manners effectively and winning in new ways. The building relationship between Kevin O'Connell, who just went 13-3 with the Vikings, or 13-4 with the Vikings in his first year. He's been building that relationship. He's went and learned and studied with Sean McVay, who's done huge things with the Rams and has had glowing success with them. He's even, when the women's basketball tournament was here in Minneapolis, he made sure that he could get and sit down with Coach Don Staley of the South Carolina women's basketball team, who is a legend right now already with the success that she's been having with that team. And then also how he's continuing to grow that huge relationship with former Gophers volleyball coach Hugh McCutcheon, and who is getting more involved with the program because he's no longer in that coaching role, has taken on a more advisor role with the Gopher sports, and he's getting more involved with football, where he's consistently kind of sitting in on practices and giving thoughts and feedback in certain areas, or letting PJ pick the brain of how he approaches certain situations. All of that goes a long way into why the ceiling could still go higher. Now, I truly hope that the Gophers can push for more, and I don't believe Coach Fleck, or any other coach on the staff for that matter, is going to settle. Now, I've worked in football, like it has been my job before, and I've worked for a team that has struggled and lost a lot of games. Even then, during that time where the winning wasn't happening, it wasn't like people were like, all right, man, I'm just cashing in the checks. Get me done with this season. No, people are grinding. The film study doesn't stop. It gets tougher. The breakdown of plays doesn't go down. It goes up. You're trying to do everything and more to continue to push. And I can tell you for a fact, that was at the Division II level. I have also worked in dysfunction before, and that is not this. This program has been put together fairly nicely, has been building in the right direction and trending up. So I truly believe the ceiling and the best is yet to come. And it's like the phrase that you are the people that you surround yourself with. Well, if you look at the coaching staff that continues to come in here to the Gophers and position coach wise, you're seeing head coaches walk away from this program, assistant coaches or position coaches that turn to head coaches. You're seeing a great relationship between the defensive coordinator. You're seeing great relationships with the other staff. You're seeing growth and other top end coaches that maybe are under the radar coming in, doing great work, and then getting promoted. You see a lot of success building, and I think the best is truly yet to come. Now, this season is going to be a major test on that front, and it will also provide opportunity to make greater noise for the program. Because, 6 wins in a bowl game, that's expected. That we can't go below that. If you go below that, you start to have issues. That's what has lifted here. The expectation is much higher now. So 6 wins in a bowl games is expected. 8 wins in a difficult season this year, it's definitely achievable. But if the Gophers can walk away with 10 plus wins this season, in this year, I would expect an influx of interest from recruits, from a larger recruiting pool, from the national media, and even from other programs trying to poach coaches. 2023 will be a major test for the Gophers, both on and off the field, but the ceiling is still plenty high. So let's put those rumors to rest. Let's move forward and let's look at a good 2023 and the challenges that it will present. That's going to do it for us here at Locked On Golden Gophers. I hope you enjoyed the show. Be sure to hit subscribe over on YouTube so you don't miss out on anything moving forward. And I will see you tomorrow as we close out the week on a Friday show. Row the boat, Skayuma. Go Gophers.